Women make up nearly 50% of all gamers, yet only a small percentage of women play esports professionally. It's time to figure out how to change that. The Knights want to empower women to build their esports empire. Along with our partner PNC Bank, we are adamant about creating a more equitable future for gamers. There is no one-size-fits-all solution, so we'll be tackling the issue from all angles, featuring insights from a variety of subject matter experts and professionals. I'm Kat DeShields Moon with the Knights. Welcome to the Women in Esports podcast.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the kickoff of Season 3 for the Women in Esports podcast presented by the Pittsburgh Knights and PNC Bank. I am so excited for all of the special guests that we have this season, and we are still looking for who you would like to see come onto the podcast as our guests and what area of expertise that they may offer. So please take some time to, drop us a line on Twitter, on Instagram, on YouTube, wherever it is you're tuning in for the show, and let us know who you'd like to see. In case you missed it, our last guest, Sayri Keitlin with Full Sail University, really went into how colleges and universities build the esports pipeline, specifically what programs and offering Full Sail University has, and how women who are looking to get into the space either on the pro or the industry side of things can make a niche for themselves and make a name for themselves rather during their collegiate experience. So I am super excited to introduce our guest for today. I have been internet stalking her for a little bit, which is a little creepy, but I'm so glad that I get a chance to talk to her and you guys get to meet her in this capacity for the podcast. Please join me in welcoming Verta Maloney. She is the co-founder of the GameHERS and co-founder of 45 Lemons. And if you don't know who the GameHERS are, then you're going to learn everything that you need to know right now because they're an amazing organization. I have so much love for them. Welcome to the show, Verta.
Thank you so much, Kat. I'm super excited for this conversation and the time that we get to spend together, and that I have such an amazing lurker in my midst.
Lurking will be no more. Now I'm just going to be like, hey, Verta, hey, what's going on? Oh, I'm so excited. You can see me everywhere now. It's going to drive you crazy. But
I love it.
I have so many questions for you, and I really want to get through them all. So I'm going to dive right in. For folks that watch the show, they always know I start with this question, and that's what brought you into the gaming industry?
So I think the GameHERS brought me in because of community. And I would say that my children brought me in because they've been gaming their whole entire lives and as long as I've known them. And then prior to that, I would say that it was arcades that brought me in. And so I'm totally grew up on arcades and Miss Pac-Man and watching other people play mostly because I was so nervous to get in or waiting for them to stop playing so I could play without people watching how bad I was. And most recently with the GameHERS, that was an idea that Heather brought to me. She's one of my co-founders and was just having a conversation. She was at a meeting and they were talking about, all these things that were going to happen in esports. This is like 4 years ago. And there was maybe she was one of a handful of women in that room. And so we talked more about that and we said, well, we know that women have to be somewhere in the gaming and esports space. Why aren't they in this room? And just started investigating that. And my background is a lot of just bringing communities together, working with those that the system historically marginalizes. And so here we are in a situation where what happens in the real world, in the outside the gaming world and all of that, we see it replicated here. And so just a desire to elevate, amplify, empower, and get the voices of women in gaming, women in esports out there was really the impetus for me to officially become a part of the industry.
I don't know. That's awesome. I love it. And people's reasons for getting into this space are so varied and wonderful, whether it's I was always gaming or, I kind of game but didn't. My kids got me into it. My parents were the ones that got me into gaming, believe it or not. So
I love it.
I know, me too. It's just everybody's story is so different. It's always a question worth asking. So you went
Exactly.
into how GameHERS was co-founded a little bit, but for those
Hmm.
that don't know, and shame on you
Yeah.
if you don't know, but now you're going to be educated about.
Or welcome to the fam. Now you know.
Oh,
Now
there
you
we
know.
go. What does GameHERS do? Like,
Yeah.
what is the core pillars of your organization?
First and foremost, we're community. We are a place for women and femme-identifying gamers, and women and those that are femme-identifying in the industry, to come and find a place that feels like home, and where you can bring all the stuff that you gaming brings us together, and then all the other things you love talking about. Pets, we're going to have a place for you to talk about pets. You want to grind on your game, we're going to have people that are here to help you do that. So first and foremost, we're a community, and then with that, because our goal is to elevate and amplify the voices of women, femme identifying folks in gaming, we have media platforms. So we create content across all platforms, and all of, you know, I would say 99% of our content is by those that are not cis men, in the world. And so that's who we're elevating and amplifying. And then we have a lot of, and then we're a brand, right? So we see ourselves as a brand that people want to be aligned with in the world, because we are trying to make space for those that are not often having a space in games and in the gaming industry.
Mhm.
So I think I answered the question. Yeah, we'll talk more about all those things.
Yes, yes. No, I'm such a fan. I love it. But something I didn't know until I went digging was some of the other work that you do. So I noticed you do a lot of
Mm,
activist work. Can you tell us more about that and your role as co-founder of 45 Lemons? Like, what else is there
yeah.
to Verta Maloney?
It's like there's so much, and yet so little. No, I'm just joking. I think it's like I actually think I'm at a place in my life where all of the things that I've done my whole life are kind of coming together. And I say
Mhm.
this to anyone that's out there that wants to, whatever you want to pursue, you are the special sauce. Like, you are the primary ingredient. And so sometimes people feel like they can only do one thing, because that's traditionally what we think. Okay, I have to go get this job, and that's what I'm going to focus on. The thing is that you have to find the places and spaces where you can do all of the things that you love. And so 45 Lemons, I do work around the country, and I've done work around the globe. Now, with the pandemic that happened, it opened up boundaries a little bit, or borders, if you will, around anti-racism and anti-oppression. And I've done that ever since I could probably form a thought about what it meant to be a Black girl in the world, right? And so I've just always been thinking about what it means to be a Black woman, to be a Black girl, and then how do I create and use all of the things that I have access to create space for those coming after me, and even just fighting for those alongside me and with me at the time. And so ever since, you know, college, and it's funny to hear the term activist used for me, because I would just say it's just what I do, right? It's just
Mhm.
like, and I didn't even have a term for it. And I think like how, or I know how it connects with the work at the GameHERS is that, again, I'm in a space where, there are times where we are, and you know this, Kat, like you go into a room and you're the only woman. You might be the
Mhm.
only, for me, the only Black woman in the room, maybe the only Black person, right? And
Yeah.
that, and that's like not the goal. Like, that's not what I want to do. And so how do we create more space? Because it's not all rooms that are like that. And when we think about, like, there are stats out there that what I think there's something like 85% of Black teenagers play video games. That percentage is the largest for all demographic groups. Yet you don't see that reflected when you
Right.
see an esports team, or you don't see that reflected when Twitch puts out their list of the top gaining or earning streamers, or you don't see that represented, or when you look at game dev studios, right? And things like
Right.
that. And so I see quite a connection to the work that I have always done in the world, and how I bring that to the space that is gaming.
No, that's some powerful stuff, and I'm right there with you when you're looking around like, is anybody else? I'm the only one. Okay, here we go.
There
And I
we
mean,
go.
so much is lost, when
Yeah.
when you find yourself in situations like that, especially in kind of speaking and presentation roles, because I am not the sum all representation of every Black
Exactly.
woman in gaming. Like, there's so many different
Exactly. And neither am
perspectives
I.
and
Exactly.
experiences, right?
And it's
So,
beautiful, and it's a
mhm,
beautiful thing that people are missing out on. And I say this to say that
right.
as the gamers, we are not the first to do this, right? We come in and on the alongside and almost like with organizations like Black Girl Gamers, like Melanin
Mhm.
Gamers, like Queer Women of Esports. Like there are these organizations that have Wiggy, Women in Games. Like there's all these organizations that have been doing some really amazing things, and still they're not even as elevated and amplified as they need to be, right? And so
Right.
how do we just like do that collectively? Is just it's part of I feel like why I'm here.
I love it. And,
Hmm.
in talking to you and so many others, I don't know why it just clicked. I was today years old when I realized this,
Hmm.
that access and education and advocacy, the work that those organizations that you just named are doing, is a form of activism. There is an
Yes.
activist movement that is happening in the gaming and esports space to make it more accessible and more equitable for people. Um, just for those that don't have a voice yet or isn't as loud
Hmm.
as it should be in the space to be heard.
Yeah.
And this is especially true for women in esports. So I'd like
Yeah.
to dig into that just a little bit. So
Hmm.
in your opinion, if you had to select like one thing, and we know it's multiple things, but one big thing
Hmm.
that's preventing gaming and esports from being a truly welcoming space for women, what would you say?
Can I say two?
Yes, yes, you could say two.
Okay, great. Okay. So I had to get permission first. So the first I would say is believing the lived experiences of women. So, and when I say that, I think that there's often a pause, or I didn't experience that, or I've never seen that when something is named, whether it is a bad experience or getting passed over for something, or saying that I'm feeling, this anxiety in this moment, like believe women. Like that's just the bottom line. And I think that too often there you don't. And when I say you don't, it's not even outright saying I don't believe you. Sometimes it's the questions that you ask us or the
Mm,
assumptions that you make. So if I've been in spaces and in a room where someone will say, where I will name that there's a large percentage of women that actually play that game. Well, I don't, and a man will say, that's not true. I've never seen them. Okay. There's two reasons. There's a lot of reasons for that, but some of it at the competitive level, if we're getting all the way to esports, it's because they've been ticked off all the way along. One, because people didn't believe them when they said they were going through something that was preventing them from wanting to continue to play the game. So that's number one. And then the second is believing, and then two is not putting all of the burden on women to solve this
mm,
problem. So like flipping that, like we actually need, it does, in this work, there are sacrifices, and it feels like a sacrifice to those that have always had it. But if you are given an opportunity to speak at something, and you are or an opportunity to play a certain game, like, are you asking as a man, are there other women that could do this with me? Are you bringing women along for that? Are you having them be in the room? Are you doing those things? Because women are doing that for each other. It's just,
mhm,
I just think, the thing is that, but that second thing is that we actually can't be the only ones that are bearing the burden of making this, one, known, and that our truths are known, and two, doing something about it. And there's lots of things that you can do about it, right? So one is like giving the space and saying, hey, if I'm going to play, then I know this really great person that should be here too, or at least give them a
mhm.
chance. And it could also be stepping in to say something when something has occurred, so that a woman doesn't have to do that all the time. So those are the two things. I took up more space than I should have on that one, but
Oh no, there is no shortage of space here.
okay.
None at all. No, those are fantastic points, and I'm sitting here like taking notes, like, yep, I feel seen.
Hmm.
Uh-huh.
Hmm.
um,
Yeah.
so I would love to dig into the 2 points you made was believing the lived experiences of women and not putting all of the burden on women to solve the problem. How
Yeah.
does GameHERS what's the word? Not offset. How does gamers support women through these two things that are
Mm-hmm.
big problems in the industry, and on top of some of the other programming that's run
Mm-hmm.
through gamers?
Well, I definitely think the elevating and amplifying them is about the believing, right? So, one, first of all, just believing that we're here, like literally that we are here. And so we do that through our Gamers Awards. We do that through our content, which we look to our community to actually like write, share experiences. We do career spotlights, and we are highlighting and elevating and amplifying women in esports as well as women across the industry, right? So in order to believe it, you have to see it. And it's not
Yeah.
just seeing the things that are our negative experiences and the toxic things. Those are true and a part of this whole thing, right? I say that we are humans, and so we get to experience complex and myriad of emotions simultaneously. So we can actually elevate and amplify and be like really excited that this woman finally got, this job and is like doing all the things that they've ever wanted to do at Blizzard Games, while at the same time being like totally and utterly disgusted and pissed with what has happened, right? Like within that toxic culture. So I think that that's one way that we're addressing that part of it. And then the other side of it, we're not putting the burden solely on women to solve this. We are looking, the term I use is co-liberators. I don't use allies often. I think ally, and it's a really good friend of mine, Rafi, who they always say like, ally is a verb, like you are, and you have to be doing that. And I think co-liberator is the term I use because it, if if you are helping to elevate and amplify women in this space as a man, let's say, that is also going to help you be elevated and amplified as well. It's also going to help you to just have a better experience, better competitive experience, a better lived experience. And so just doing it is not because you're doing it for someone else, for a woman. It's because we're doing this together, and this is going to help you. And so we have I would say a collection of co-liberators. They don't outnumber those who are space centers, but we definitely have men in our space that are working with us. They ask us to be supporters with them, teachers even with them, right?
Mhm.
And I think that that's important. I will also say that you should, if anyone is teaching you anything, that you should pay them accordingly, like pay them for that service, right? So if you're bringing women in and into roles and asking them, don't just pick our brains, actually do that and pay us, because it's going to be helping you to be better as well. And so we try to align with, and we've even had to sometimes turn people away because we're like, we don't think you have your act together. And I think that that's
Mm.
an important thing to say, right? Like that you're not actually about this, and we don't want to just be about checking off boxes. And so I think it's finding some people in the industry that are really about it. And like we have some exciting things happening. We're doing some things with Dallas Fuel, and just like really figuring out a way to help within the esports ecosystem. They're already there, and they have a voice and a platform, and they're helping to use that to do what we do, elevate and amplify women within the space. So I hope I answered the question. At any time that I don't, just redirect me.
No, you're perfect. Like that was wonderful, and thank you. So for everybody that's listening, women or women identifying, go check out GameHERS. Like they have such a wealth of resources, of communities, of things that you can get involved with. So if you feel isolated or you feel like you're not heard or seen, that is definitely a place that you can go and call home. So
Yes.
please take a moment to go and check them out. So I think one thing that I always find fascinating is how some organizations, it's like, as you see the finished product, or like where they are now, and it's like, there's no way I can get there, there's no way I can
Mhm.
have the level of impact that GameHERS has.
Yeah.
But it's a process, right? What
Mhm.
GameHERS was in 2019 is probably
Mhm.
very different than what it is
Mhm.
now in 2022. So
Yeah.
how has the organization changed or evolved your approach over the years to better serve your community? Just behind the curtain, what steps or even missteps did you have, to get where you are today with the level of impact that you have on others?
So I would say acknowledging it and accepting that you can't be everything to everybody. I think it was really, in this time of wanting to be inclusive and wanting to make sure that everybody has a say and a voice, that has had to evolve as we have grown, in that we have to say that we do center women and women identifying folks, and we provide space for our non-binary siblings and cousins and friends and legends, and at the same time understanding that their lived experience may not align with, right, that all of them may not feel that we are the safest place for them, and that we are working to make sure we are safe for everyone, but also making sure that we listen to the things that they say that maybe make them feel like they're not, right? And that's really important. It's taking the feedback, it's listening, and so the first one is that you can't be everything to everybody. And if you're intentionally and with good faith and with curiosity, intending to be inclusive, you can be a space where just about everyone feels like they can get down and rock with you, right? Like, except for the people that are just like absolutely not about it. So that's the first thing that I would say. I think that for me, I was later in life that I decided to like lean into being an entrepreneur. I think I've always had an entrepreneurial spirit. However, like starting a business and companies, this has been in the last 5 to 8 years of my life. And I had to say to myself, even if I mess this up, what I learn is going to probably, it's going to mean that I was successful. So like, what am I going to learn from this? And in that, the lesson is be willing to just like kind of take the risks. Don't let perfect be the enemy of like done really well. I don't know. I think that's like Google says that somewhere. I'm paraphrasing, and be flexible. So one of the things, for example, that we had not even intended was our app. We didn't come into this saying we're going to build an app. It just wasn't, we weren't thinking about that. Like, we were thinking about building community. We were thinking about this is going to be we were going to do a lot of in-person meetups, and then, COVID hits and changes all of that. And one of the things that started to emerge, two of the things that emerged in that process, one was that while there are a lot of community spaces that exist, right? You have Twitter, you have Discord, you have all these things. It didn't always feel like, unless you had your niche group, you didn't feel like, a lot of women didn't feel like they could be their full selves there, right? Like there was something that felt off, and they were like, what if we could socially get together with people that were just like us and didn't mind, or we had a place where we could talk about makeup and people weren't going to act like, just because I want to talk about makeup and I need to have my face beat does not mean that I can't also like kick your ass in this game, right? But and so stuff, I'm sorry, I don't know if I'm allowed to curse or not.
Oh no,
so
that's
stuff
fine.
like that. Okay, great. So stuff like that started to emerge. And so we're like, well, and people were saying like, what if we created an app? So we did that. And this was like listening to the voices of the community. So that's something like we didn't even expect. And so here we are, we have an app. It's called the GameHERS app. We've got like 8,500 people on there. We just launched in November. That's kind of huge. And we're like, oh my gosh. And it's just like good vibes. It's like, just like sometimes you just want a place that you open it up and you just feel good vibes. And so that has been really awesome. The second thing that really emerged, and I think that this was obviously a product of, if you hear some howling, that's my puppy, is professional, just work. So one, finding work. A lot of people were being laid off, and we found this in our Discord community. It's when our first professional boot camp was born out of like, I need support on like building a new resume. I just got laid off and I'm looking for work. And then the third was like, I really want to figure out how to break into the gaming industry, and kind of pulling back the curtain on any industry is an industry. So you can be the lawyer, you can be the graphic designer, you can be the HR person and work in gaming. And so that's kind of really like is how our professional boot camp, and really thinking about the collegiate space. These are things that we're not like, if not for listening to our community, being a part of the community that we're building and creating with, that we wouldn't have known. So I think it's all about that. Those are some of the ways that we've evolved. We kind of were like, we're going to create a space and like, it's going to be great. And women are going to get together. We're going to do all these meetups. And then all these other branches like have emerged from it. And so be willing to let other human beings be a part of your dream, and then take your dream to places that you would never have dreamed for yourself. And that, I think, is something that we're learning. We have like such an amazing team, and we're tiny. People think we're like big as Facebook. We're a tiny, tiny little outfit, but we have some of the most amazing human beings on the planet, I think, working for us. And they're just so smart and brilliant. So those are some of the things I would say.
Oh, that's perfect. I love that last line. Be willing to let others be a part of your dream and let them take your dreams to places you didn't imagine. That should be a t-shirt, a coffee table book, poster, everything, because I think that a large problem with esports and the way that it's advancing is that, so many organizations are doing wonderful work, but they're trying to own the entire solution, to solve the equation
Yes.
of diversity. And it's like, no, 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 no.
Yeah.
Siloing and not reaching out and helping each other is not how we're going to get there. We need to band
Mhm.
together. We need to work with
Exactly.
each other. So yes, I
Yes. I agree with
love
that.
that quote.
I'm gonna put it on a t-shirt.
Yes. And let me know, because I will buy them. So I love all of the things that you just laid out. It would be so helpful for anybody that's trying to either establish or grow their own program.
Mhm.
So one of the things that really stood out to me is the way that you take your community feedback into consideration. And
Mhm.
authenticity is so, so important when it comes to initiatives that are to help the underrepresented or the overlooked, because
Mhm.
even though you and I would know like what it feels like, somebody else might not, or it might be a
Yeah.
different flavor of what we're experiencing.
Mhm.
So with authenticity playing such a huge part in organizations being able to grow, what methods does gamers take to stay mission aligned with the needs of your community? Like, what does that look like? Is it surveys, polls? How do you do it?
It's definitely those. It's definitely surveys. It's definitely polls. And I think that I say it's like listening, but also reading. So we kind of like, we get all up in our stuff, all up in our tweets, all up in the subtweets, all up in the, you know what I mean? And like kind of just
Mhm.
listening and paying attention to what's happening there. But I would say initially, and we do this a couple times a year, we will send out a big survey and just like give us some feedback. And I remember when we did this with our Discord and was like, okay, like, we changed so many things. They were like, this is, we had to like pare it back and do all these things, but really just asking people. The other way that we do this, and one of the things being a for-profit and for-purpose company, is we hire people from our community. So people that's, not everyone, but a lot of people that end up working with us actually were a part of our community. And that's another way that we can stay true and authentic to who our community is, right? And so, for example, we have two college going students that do a lot of things with us for collegiate. Because the thing is that you can have an idea, but I'm not in college anymore. No, I'm just joking. I had a great time, but I'm not. And so why I can definitely I have my lived experience. I have experienced a lot of things, but I also need to know from the group that we are seeking to support, like what that looks like. And so we tend to hire from within our community as well, a great deal. And I recommend that for any company. Hire people that are from your community. They're usually the biggest advocates for you, and they came there for a reason. And two, they represent the group that you are seeking to serve and support.
Right.
So yeah, and then I think the other big thing, one, just as a founder, and this is for me, Heather, Laura, Rebecca, we're just really honest about who we are, right? Like the thing is that it's so funny. I am a gamer. We had to acknowledge that. I came in though with this, is like, I'm not, because I hadn't really been playing video games for a good amount of time, right? And I think that that's the other part of this. It can ebb and flow. You can still
Right.
be a gamer and have a period of time where you don't play games,
Hmm.
right? Like it's just like anything else, right? And so being just true to who I am. And I always lead with that. I'm a Black girl, and I need to make sure that Black girls get seen in the things that we do as the GameHERS, right? And so that's a part of who I am, right? And each of us being authentic to who we are, so that we can also bring that to the fore. So I think you can't be, it's not just about your community, it's about who you are as a part of your community as well, and bringing your true self.
Yeah. No, absolutely. I love it. Just because I'm curious, and
Yeah, yeah.
there are things that there's still so much that I need to learn,
Mm-hmm.
as the
Mm-hmm.
times and things evolve around us. We're all pretty familiar with some of the issues that women face in gaming and esports, but what new or unique challenges face femme-identifying gamers?
Mm-hmm.
What do people need to know? How
Yeah.
can they advocate?
So I think that I'm going to name the things that I think you would not visibly see, right? We could talk about pay gap. We could talk about people like, harassing them, all of that. I think the things that we don't see visibly, and especially with competitors,
Mhm.
is it's a term called psychic burden that they have to bear while they are doing the thing that they're doing. So while they're playing competitively, and that is all of the psychological things that they're having to deal with and think about that you will never necessarily see. So whether that's somebody says something offhand, right, and it's just you're told to, it's part of the game, right?
Mhm.
But it's not. You're not thinking as hard about what that meant if you have not encountered it every day, every lobby you went into, every time that you played, someone saying like, is that a girl, or trying to get you on a date, or the favorite, go make me a sandwich, like whatever it is. Just
Mhm.
because that person is not visually expressing distress does not mean that they are not in distress. And that is
Absolutely.
really important, right? And what that means is that coaches need to be communicating and creating a space where they can openly talk about what's going on for them, and also noticing maybe some of the subtle things that might be happening. Are they getting up later? Are they late? Are they getting there actually extra early because they're like, let me do all this stuff before anybody gets here? Paying attention to those things. So that's one thing that I will name, and that happens a lot, I think, for women, and I think it will
Mhm.
also happen for anybody that is not of the majority group, right? So this could happen for somebody based on
Right.
their race or ethnicity. This could happen for some, all of those things. But that's one thing that I would say. And I think the other is that it is okay if a woman does not want to participate in a woman only anything.
Mm.
Just like you had said before, we are not monolithic. And so just because, we are in a time where we need to shine a light on and actually like do things to elevate, but don't be upset if a woman's like, no, that's not how I get down. I only want to do co-ed.
Mhm.
Okay. Don't you know what I mean? It doesn't mean you're doing quote unquote anything wrong. And it doesn't mean that there's anything wrong with that
Right.
person. I just think that
Mhm.
I think there's always trying to put us into these little boxes of how we're supposed to show up. And I just think that that's not okay. What your job is, I think, as an esports organization, as a team, as all those things, is to create a safe space for every single human that's going to be on your team. And that means that they get to be themselves, right?
Mhm.
So those are two things that I would raise up. Just because it doesn't look that way, it doesn't mean that they're not going through some type of distress and like some type of like anxiety and a burden of being the only. And also, don't let them be the only. Like, why are you doing
Right.
that? Why are we doing that anymore? Why are we doing
Mhm.
that? Right? Like, you don't have, it doesn't have to be the case. And then the second is let the women tell you, ask them, talk to them what they want and what they need, what we want and what we need. Just ask
Mhm.
us. Like it's like so simple. But I
It's the
think
most
sometimes,
complicated
right,
thing.
it's like the most complicated thing, but it's so simple. Like, why are you not just right? And I do, and I say that sometimes, like, bring together, like, if you've got some women in your organization, like, bring them together and talk to them. Like, what's working for you here? What's not working for you here? Instead of coming up
Mhm.
with some whole program and you're mad at them because they don't want to go.
Mhm.
They're going to be like, because you didn't talk to us. It's not exactly what we said. It's just like, I mean, I'm going to like a tangent. It's just like Juneteenth being a national holiday. We're like, that ain't what we asked for. Black folks ain't asked for that. We asked for that. Thank you, but that is so not what we asked
You are so right. Oh my goodness.
for.
No, and that's an excellent point, that there's been a number of my colleagues that refuse to do anything that is branded like women in diversity or women in business or
Mm-hmm.
women in that, because it's just like me being a woman is such a small part of my greater narrative, of my
Exactly.
experiences, of who I am and what I have to offer.
Mhm. Yeah.
So that's a very valid point. And I think that when we focus too much, it's like I've gotten invitations that were terrible fits for the speaking engagement or the role. And it's like, did you even look at my LinkedIn? Did you even do anything? You just saw
Check me out.
Black woman and it was like, hey, she's great for that. I don't know anything about investment banking. Why are you asking me to be on this panel? So there's
Oh
definitely
my
that
God,
as
that's
well.
hilarious. But
Right? It's
yeah,
like,
and why? And I say this a lot. People, when I think about the future and like what it will look like when when this is not needed, because don't get me wrong, I actually think we have to have the women only, because there are,
mhm.
I think, I say 80-20 rule. I think like 80% of women do want that space where they can like do all the things and not have the psychic stuff that I'm talking about, that burden. But I think that when I go to a summit or an event and 50% of every speaker, it doesn't matter what the panel is, that it's going to be that there are women there, that there are like, and I'm going to just talk about women specifically. I think there's a whole bunch of other groups, but when I see that, then I'll know, okay, great, we're getting there. Because the thing is that we are there. You can find us. No conference should take place. There should never be a panel within this industry that has all men on it.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Riddle me that, Batman. Like, how is that possible? We are literally half the earth. I'm sorry. Like, just like they've tried to find you for that investment banking, they could find us for all these things. At least half. It's just, it doesn't, it's not. And then it won't feel so like, oh, like when you do have the women in gaming panel, I do that in a setting where it's all, where I know that even I'll go other places and there you will find us. Or the one that is
Exactly.
about, I don't know, in finding investors for your esports team, and you have all women on the panel, then I'll be like, boom. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
that's a place where I know that you kind of get this, right? And so I think it's just that it goes back to what you were saying before. We are not a monolith. And so you have to actually approach us as such. And at the same time, we're at a place where the playing field needs to be leveled, because the playing field has not been level. And these two things can coexist. Sometimes people think it's like either or. It's not. You can do both and. You can do both and.
Nope, you're exactly right. And it definitely takes a little bit more effort, right?
It
To
does.
go outside of your normal contacts, or that, hey, do you
Mhm.
know somebody? Oh yeah, I know a person. It takes
Exactly.
more effort, to go
Hmm.
outside of what to find new talent, new voices. But it's so worth it.
So
It's
worth
like
it.
I can't express how worth it is, only because it extends. Well, it doesn't extend, it shows that you're committed, to making this change. And
Hmm.
no meaningful change happens without sacrifice, and whether that's time or
Exactly.
resources,
Yep.
stepping outside of your comfort zone, it's
Yep.
necessary in order to advance, the overall industry. So
Agreed.
speaking of industry, so gamers, you have streamers, you have your professional boot camp. I'm curious, has any of your community members like trends like come into the world of esports? Like, what kind
Hmm.
of success stories and interesting anecdotes can you share there?
This is a good one. I don't know if I have enough success stories. I think that people are just grateful that we're talking about it. And I do think that
Yeah.
this is a question I need to find out from our community. I can say for those that end up working with us, I can say we've had like one or two that have said definitely it has helped them to get an in into a different company or something like that. And we want to track this more. I think that right now we're at the phase of one, just broadening, opening the gates, honestly, right? Like, so if that term gatekeeper is one that anyone's familiar with, we're just like, yes, open all the gates, open all the gates. Like, that's what we're like, let's open all the gates. So that's like, I feel like that's the mode, that's our mode right now.
Hmm.
So that it's like, just like, come on in, come on in. And now we're, now figuring out who like kind of gets through that. The one space that I feel like there's traction is around our collegiate space. And so we have a collegiate division. We have about 70 to 90 schools that have signed on. And what that means is they sign our code of conduct, and they've agreed that they want to create a space where women know that this is like either an esports team or club or gaming club on your campus that you can feel more safe at. And one data point is that at one of the colleges, the year before, the year that they signed on, they saw like something like a 30% increase in the number of girls that came out to join their esports club. And that's
Awesome.
huge, because the thing is that,
Yeah.
right, like, when you think about on campus, and I can't remember who it was that I talked to, I was on a panel with someone, and they said this whole thing about one of the things that they did on campus is when everyone's coming on, it's, coming, I don't know, welcome back. I don't know what the word is, but they're the
Mhm.
fall, the spring, you're coming on
Oh,
campus.
yeah,
Welcome back.
orientation or
Welcome to
something.
orientation. Thank you. Thank you. When
Mhm.
it's like orientation and they're like, everyone's getting into their dorms and stuff, they just set up a table. They set up different tables. Each of them like went to different parts on campus and literally just asked everyone as they walked in, hey, do you play video games? Hey, do you play video games? Hey, do you play video games? And I was like, see, like that's like huge because it's not like join the esports team. It's not we have a
Right.
gaming club. It's asking a very simple question that then is an entree because this is where you'll have more people saying, yeah, I do. And
Mhm.
maybe I just play casually. Maybe I am a girl who thought about it, but no one ever asked me. So I'm not going to go pursue that. So I just think that in the collegiate space, it's about one, pulling girls out of their dorm rooms and out of all those spaces and playing games with in an organized way, because that is a pathway all the way down to middle school, quite frankly, into
Mhm.
STEM and into careers, and now into I could actually work in the gaming industry. And maybe I can be a competitive esports player. Maybe I can be a shoutcaster, like those types of things that I think are really important. And so I feel like within those spaces is where we're right now that we've like just opened all the gates. We're starting to kind of get these like little bits of data points that we do see something happening.
Yeah. No, that's great. And I love that approach. Just don't overcomplicate it. Don't be like, do you want to go pro, in Fortnite?
Right.
No. It's like I don't know. Maybe it sounds great. I don't know how to get there.
Right.
Instead just
Just,
do you play
do
video
you
games?
play?
What are you playing right
What are you
now?
playing? Exactly.
That's so simple. Such a simple
So
question.
simple.
And I love the way that competitive gaming is evolving to include other
Yeah.
kinds of titles outside of the big
Yep.
AAA ones. I think it's a couple years old. I don't even know if they do it anymore, but there was a Stardew Valley esports tournament, and it was just like, it
Mm-hmm.
was multiplayer. It was the most wholesome thing I've ever seen in my entire life. But I'm
Yeah,
like,
it's gonna be
oh,
exciting. It's gonna be exciting
yeah.
to see. I think we're at a really, really cool moment. I had read recently too that the Olympics is considering
Ooh,
esports. I know.
that's about I like it. Can you imagine?
Hmm. I can't, and I can't wait. I couldn't have
Yeah.
imagined it. If you had said that to me, I would have been like, no, no way, never gonna happen.
No, for real. If you would have told me I'd be working in esports, I'm like, get out. What are you even talking about?
What you talking about? What you talking about, Willie?
Stop lying.
Stop lying. Stop playing it.
Oh my goodness. Well, this hour has flown by, but I still got some more questions, so I'm going to try and
Okay.
squeeze them in. So I'm going to try and squeeze them in real quick. So I love the juxtaposition of one do and one don't. So for organizations who are looking to start or evolve women's programming, what is one thing they should do? Absolutely. And what is one thing that they should avoid at all costs?
I think there's a trend that we've talked about a little bit. So the first
Hmm.
one do is talk to, listen to, and believe the women already in your organization. Now, if you don't have any, then whoa, like you need to like just reevaluate your whole life. And I'm not even trying to be funny, right? But
No, that's
honestly,
so
like
real.
that's the do. The first thing you have to do is talk to the women that already are in your ecosystem, ecology, echo. I always say it wrong, within your organization. That's number
Mhm.
one. Do it. Talk to them. I think sometimes people rush to the solutions because they're actually scared of what they're going to hear
Oh,
from
yes.
the people that they want to support. And in this instance, women. So then they just rush off and they, I don't know, decide this is what we're going to do for women because I saw this other company did it, right? So that's the first. Do. Talk to the women within your organization. If you don't think that they're going to feel comfortable with you, then bring another woman in. There are lots of women who do this work. Bring them in to talk to them and gather that data first and foremost. Um, and the one don't. I think that the biggest don't is around it's connected to don't think that you have the answer. Don't think that you are the only one to, like what a woman needs. Don't
Mhm.
do that. And connected to that is don't see us as one thing,
Mhm.
woman. So what's happening right now, I think, in this space is that women, and I'm seeing a lot of white women actually taking up space within what it means to do DEI work. And I'm not saying that women are not suffering in a certain way because they are women or white women are. I think that the intersectionality of women is
Mm-hmm.
nothing to not include and not think about. And if you can have women in your organization or that are leading these efforts that are at the cross of these intersections, you're going to be better served. That's just what I want to say. And that so we are not a monolith, and you need to consider the intersections that are women, and that just because there's a woman doesn't mean that that woman is actually going to be able to represent what you want represented. It just says, like, find and be true to that. So I think I said what I think I gave 2 or 7.
2, 7, 8, it doesn't matter. It's all gems here. I love it. So one thing that I love to ask, is I'm constantly inspired by the new roles and organizations and jobs and college majors that are popping up everywhere. Like,
Mhm.
there's stuff that you can go to school for now that never existed when I was in school. And I'm like, I low key want to go back to school to major in that. I mean, even though I am in the industry already, that sounds
Mhm.
dope. Like,
Mhm.
so
Right.
if
And where was
a
that
young,
class when I needed it?
right, but it's okay. Y'all enjoy it. Y'all enjoy. If a young woman aspires to do what you do, so co-founder of GameHERS, co-founder of 45 Lemons, what advice would you give her?
The first is you are everything that you need to be, and it is your job to go out and be that thing in all of the places that you want to be. I think don't try to hide yourself. Don't think that you're not, your ideas are brilliant. It doesn't mean you don't have things to learn. We all do. The thing is that if someone had told me younger to lean into being more of who I am, I would be probably here sooner. So lean into more of who you are. If you are, if you are quirky, if you're awkward, if you are like super into makeup and you want to find a way to put fashion into whatever you do it. That would be really the biggest thing. I think too often, particularly as women, we are told to kind of dampen or like hide, dim our shine. Do not do
Mm-hmm.
that. Do not in any way do that. I think the other thing that I would say is if you love something, and just hone your craft. So I am a storyteller. I love writing. I love photography. I love the arts, and I bring that into a lot of what I do. But I studied those things, and not necessarily in school, right? So my degrees are in human communication, middle school education, and politics and education is my master's, right? So that's like a field of stuff that I've studied, and I have a degree that says that I did those things. But there's a whole bunch of other things that I love and I adore, and I just do that on my own. I studied that. I've taken photographs for album covers. Like, I've done all those things because I love that, and I have. I just think anything that you love, just study it and do it and keep doing it, right? Like, just be on your grind about that. Think, yeah, that's all I'll say. um, yeah, those are my gems for younger folks. And also, don't try to be, yeah, don't you don't need to do what I do. Do what you're going to do in the world. And I think that because I believe in abundance. I believe that just because someone else has a podcast doesn't mean that your podcast isn't going to be just as dope.
Right.
Just because I founded the GameHERS doesn't mean that you're not going to be able to found your own company that's going to do something that elevates and amplifies women. And it goes to what Kat was saying before. Like, every single one of us doesn't have to have the one solution. It's a collective web where we all are solving for something, and we, collectively we will get there. So don't seek to do what I do. Seek to do what it is that's going to be your hotness, because it's there.
Absolutely. I love that advice. I feel like you're speaking to me. It's like, oh, Verta, oh, how did you
Damn.
know? I needed that today.
Hey, I'm so
Ah,
glad. I'm so glad.
all right. So, if you could go back in time to when you
Mm.
founded GameHERS, what advice would you give yourself on your first day of that journey?
The advice that I would give myself if I were able to go back in time is I said it before, you can't do it all and you can't please every single person. So don't worry about that. And it's so interesting because I kind of like always know that about myself in general. I'm always like, I'm not everybody's cup of tea. Like everybody got their own flavor of sauce, but sometimes it's hard to remember that. And I would just remind myself of that. You don't have to do it all. You can't do it all, and you're not going to please everyone. So go forth and do the things. Yeah, that's what I would say to myself.
Ah, I love it. That's fantastic. This whole episode has been fantastic. Every time I'm like, oh, this is my favorite episode. And then it's like, nope, dang it. Like,
yay, love it. You're bringing on so many. You're bringing on so many awesome people. That says a lot about who you are, Kat.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate it. It's this is like nourishment for me. It's good therapy, listening and learning and connecting.
I love it.
So thank you, Verta, so much for your time today. We really appreciate all of the wonderful insight and perspective that you've brought to the show. I mean, you talk about like a bunch of action items. Like you can't say this was a fluff podcast episode. Like you should already be like, yep, I got to do that. Haven't been doing this. I'm going to start doing this, and it's with an organization that's done some wonderful, wonderful work in this space. So for those that are listening, how can people support GameHERS, support you, and keep connected? Like, what can they do?
Well, I think the biggest thing is go find our app. It's a really hard name, the GameHERS app. Haha, joking. It's on Android and it's on iOS. It's only US right now, but go download our app and like come and rock with us in our community. I'd say that would be the first thing to do. And then just find us in all the places, right? We're all over. We're on all of the, all the social medias and all of that. I think those would be the biggest ways to support us. We are, we're currently fundraising. So if you know people that, that are interested in supporting women-led companies, send them our way.
Absolutely. Well, you heard it, folks. So definitely go check them out on social. If you tuned in late, you need to restart this episode and listen to the whole thing. And of course, be sure to check out all of the wonderful guests we had in season 1 and season 2, and our last episode with Sari as well. So Verta, again, thank you so much for your time today. Thank you everybody who tuned in and has been along with us, whether this is your first episode or your 10th, 11th, you've been with us the whole time. We appreciate you tuning in, and we'll see you next time.